pop culture generation has been watching reality television for 2 decades. We have been watching confessional-style interviews for 2 decades in which young people spew verbal vomit in hopes of talking themselves into a valid point. And unfortunately, we have developed a habit of doing the exact same thing. And this is so frustrating to listen to if you are someone who is trying to be efficient, if you are someone who has asked a simple question in the business world. But for us, we want to fill in everything. We don't want to miss details. We want to talk about everything. It's not necessarily about the question asked. It's about, well, how can I give the response of my dreams? I have to tell you, one of my first business trips, I was on a client acquisition trip to North Carolina. And my boss had been in meetings all week in New York. And when he got home, he called me and he said, "Jake, how was the week?" Oh man, the week for me had been so awesome and there had been so much happening that I wanted to share everything. I wanted to get every little detail in there. I didn't consider that he may have been looking for the following answers. It was good. It was not good. Because for me, it was like, this was such a big week for me, I had to tell him all about it. And so my answer, it was like, like I was one of those radio broadcasters doing a 40s noir detective story. You go, how was my week? Let me tell you. The sun was just beginning to set as we touched down in Raleigh-Durham. It took me a moment to deplane as a little girl ran over my foot with her Dora the Explorer suitcase. Before I went to my first meeting, I ducked into Chili's for some liquid courage and Southwestern egg rolls. And you know how when you talk to someone, you can tell if they're engaged? You can tell if they're paying attention because they go, yeah, sure, yeah, they move you along. Well, about 4, 5, 10 minutes in, I stopped hearing that. And I stopped talking. I said, "Dave, you there? Dave?" And I didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden I hear this, "Dave? And I realized he had just taken the phone and handed it to his 2-year-old son. I had been telling him about a business trip, and I got toddlered. And I was so mad, but it was such this debilitating emotional overload that I just sort of slammed the phone down and just paced for the rest of the night. And while I am not justifying his behavior, I do not advocate toddlering your employees. It was my fault, because he had asked me this question, and I didn't take into account the fact that he had been in meetings all week, and he had just gotten home to his family. And so it was partially my fault. When someone asks you a question, you should think first, okay, maybe I've got a 30-second limit. And that 30 seconds doesn't mean I need to start talking immediately and talk my way into an interesting point. Because when that happens, you could end up like that contestant from Miss USA who they asked about geography. You guys remember that? I don't remember which pageant it was, but they said, "Miss whatever state you're from, 1 in 5 American children can't identify this country on a map. What should we do?" And she just started going. She goes, "Well, I believe that the American countries such as, and the Iraq and Asian countries should have maps for the American countries such as, so that we can save our children and our families." And I mean, it became a national joke. How much better would it have been if they said, "How can we fix this geography problem?" And she had gone, "That's a very interesting question. Let me think about it. More kids should play Carmen Sandiego."